The Deathworld was a planet unlike any other. Harsh, unforgiving, and hostile, it was a place where even the bravest of galactic explorers trembled at the thought of venturing. A place where every step could be your last, where the environment itself seemed designed to kill. The very soil was toxic, plants were carnivorous, and the sky rained deadly acid storms. Only the apex creatures, evolved to survive the planet's extreme conditions, had managed to dominate its treacherous surface. But no one else dared to challenge the world itself, and no one ever truly came back once they entered. The Deathworld's reputation was legendary. It was known across the galaxy as a graveyard for the proudest expeditions. Ships crashed before they could even land, and those who attempted to scout its surface found themselves overwhelmed by a world intent on wiping them out. The creatures that roamed this planet were more monstrous than any other in the galaxy. Towering beasts with claws like knives and fangs sharp enough to rip through metal, they ruled the planet through brute force and unrelenting hunger. These apex predators were the dominant life form here, and no one, no matter how advanced, had ever posed a threat to them. The world itself seemed to laugh at the idea of survival. Its twisted jungles and frozen deserts were home to plants that could digest flesh, insects that would burrow into your skin, and beasts that could tear apart entire colonies in a matter of hours. The fauna had evolved to be apex predators, every one of them a direct challenge to any would-be invader. The atmosphere itself was lethal. Oxygen-rich, yes, but filled with trace gases that would burn the lungs of an unprepared traveler. Every organism on the planet was designed to kill, survive, and thrive in a place where survival was nothing short of a miracle. For countless civilizations, the Deathworld became a legend, a place to be avoided, a place where death awaited. Its surface was a sanctuary for the deadliest creatures the galaxy had ever seen. No race, no matter how powerful, had managed to thrive here. This was the reality that haunted the dreams of explorers and adventurers who dared to venture too close to the planet's orbit. No one ever returned to speak of it. Those who tried to chart the planet's mysteries simply disappeared. But then came a human. She was unlike any other species to ever set foot on this godforsaken planet. Her name wasn't important to the legends. What mattered was the fact that she had no fear of the Deathworld. To her, it was not a myth or an impossible challenge. It was just another obstacle to conquer. She wasn't equipped with the advanced technology that the galaxy's most powerful species boasted. She didn't have the weapons that could level entire cities, nor the ships that could navigate through the most hostile environments in the galaxy. Instead, she had something far more dangerous: her sheer will to survive. The human had come prepared. She wasn't naive or reckless. She knew what she was up against. She had studied the Deathworld extensively, learned about the apex creatures that called it home, and understood the dangers that awaited her. She didn't expect to win easily, but she also didn't expect to lose. She had nothing to rely on but herself, her skills, and a deep, unshakable resolve. As she stepped onto the surface of the Deathworld, the air was thick, the sky a dull, oppressive shade. A chilling wind carried the scent of something rotten, something that lived and died in the blink of an eye. Her boots crunched against the alien soil, and she knew that from this moment on, she was on her own. No one would come for her if she failed. This was her battle, and she would face it alone. Yet, for all the dangers surrounding her, there was no hesitation in her movement. She had entered the Deathworld alone, and no creature on this planet would stop her from surviving. The human didn't hesitate for a second. Her feet sank slightly into the ashen ground as she took her first steps into the Deathworld, her senses immediately assaulted by the oppressive atmosphere. The air was thick and acrid, carrying the smell of decay and sulfur. It felt as though the planet itself was trying to choke her, but she was prepared. She knew what this world was capable of, and she wasn't about to let it claim her. She was alone. No backup, no reinforcements. Unlike the various species who'd failed before her, she didn't rely on heavy weaponry or advanced technology. Her success would depend on one thing: her ability to outthink and outlast the planet's myriad dangers. While other species had fallen victim to the world's savage creatures, she wasn't here to be a victim. She was here to prove that humanity could thrive where others had failed, and she would do whatever it took to survive. In her pack were only the essentials: basic survival gear, a few tools, and a supply of food and water. She didn't need more. What the others lacked was the will to keep going when every instinct screamed at them to run. She had faced challenges before, and this one was no different. It wasn't about strength or power, it was about perseverance. As she ventured deeper into the planet, she encountered her first obstacle: a massive, twisted plant that resembled a tree but was far more dangerous. Its bark was covered in sharp, thorn-like spines, and its tendrils reached toward her as if aware of her presence. The plant wasn't just an obstacle. It was alive, and it wanted to consume her. But instead of being intimidated, the human assessed the situation calmly. She didn't attack the plant outright. Instead, she observed its movements, how it responded to her presence. It was slow, but deliberate. Every time it reached out with its tendrils, she sidestepped with precision. The plant was fast, but it wasn't intelligent. She saw the pattern in its movements. It was predictable. With a swift motion, she took one of her tools, a small knife, and severed one of the thick, vine-like roots that anchored the plant to the ground. The plant recoiled, its grip loosening, and the tendrils retracted. She had outsmarted it. The victory was small, but it was significant. She wasn't just surviving, she was adapting. The encounter was a reminder of the Deathworld's brutal nature, but it also underscored her greatest strength. While the creatures and plants here might be powerful, they weren't infallible. Everything had a weakness. The question wasn't whether she could defeat the planet's inhabitants. It was whether she could outlast them, outthink them, and survive. As she continued on, she encountered more threats. A swarm of vicious insect-like creatures, each one the size of her fist, descended from the trees above. Their razor-sharp mandibles clicked with a terrifying rhythm, and their venomous bite could paralyze their prey within seconds. Most beings would have fled, but she was prepared. She used her surroundings to her advantage, taking shelter in a nearby rock formation where the insects couldn't reach. Her mind worked quickly, analyzing her options. She didn't have the luxury of retreating. She had to adapt. With quick thinking, she fashioned a simple weapon from a nearby branch, using her knife to sharpen it into a point. When the swarm closed in, she held her ground, picking off the creatures one by one as they tried to attack. She didn't have the brute strength to destroy them all, but she didn't need to. She used the environment, her surroundings, her instincts. The creatures, so used to overpowering their prey, didn't expect this kind of resistance. It wasn't physical power that saved her. It was human ingenuity. She didn't just survive, she fought back. As the insects scattered, retreating into the jungle, she allowed herself a brief moment of victory. She had defeated the first wave of predators, and it hadn't been easy. The Deathworld was designed to break the spirit of anyone who entered, to destroy their will to live. But it was clear that the human was not like the others. She was different. She had no intention of giving up. Every challenge was just another puzzle to solve, another step toward victory. The Deathworld was ruthless, but it had underestimated the resilience of a human. With each passing hour, she grew more attuned to the planet. She wasn't just surviving, she was learning its rhythms. The terrain, the creatures, the weather, it all began to make sense to her. The Deathworld might have been a place of terror, but she wasn't afraid. She was here to conquer it. And so far, the planet hadn't even come close to breaking her. The first true challenge came when she crossed paths with an apex creature, a predator unlike anything she had ever encountered. It was a beast that dominated the Deathworld's food chain, a massive, four-legged creature with scales as tough as steel and claws that could shred through rock. Its glowing eyes locked onto her the moment she entered its territory, and it moved with deliberate, terrifying grace. The air around it seemed to vibrate with power, the very ground shaking with each step it took. This was not an animal. It was a force of nature, a creature evolved to be the perfect killing machine. And it saw her as nothing more than prey. The human didn't flinch. She stood her ground, her breath steady, her mind racing. The Deathworld was full of these monsters, but they were not unbeatable. They were predators, but predators were not invincible. While the beast relied on its brute strength and overwhelming size, she had something it did not: intelligence and strategy. It was the perfect example of the HFY principle. Strength wasn't the deciding factor in survival. It was the ability to adapt, to think quickly, and to make use of whatever you had at your disposal. The creature roared, a sound that rattled her bones, and charged with terrifying speed. It was fast but not invulnerable. She could see its movements, predictable as they were. It was relying on sheer force, assuming that its size alone would overwhelm her. But she was ready. As it lunged, she rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding its massive jaws. The beast's momentum carried it forward, crashing into a tree with a deafening thud. She didn't waste time. The moment it was distracted, she darted toward the nearest rock formation, using it as cover. The creature roared in fury, circling the rock, trying to find a way to reach her. It was strong, yes, but it was also arrogant. It assumed its power would be enough. But the human wasn't here to fight a battle of strength. She was here to outsmart it. Using the environment to her advantage, she began to notice the creature's weaknesses. Its scales, while tough, were not impenetrable. There were gaps in its armor, thin sections along its joints, and under its belly where the skin was more vulnerable. This wasn't a beast she could kill with brute force. It wasn't even a fight she could win through strength alone. But it was a fight she could win by exploiting its weaknesses. She waited, keeping still, biding her time. The creature paced, its massive body blocking out the light, its eyes scanning the rocks for her. It was relentless, but it was also predictable. It didn't understand that humans didn't just fight with weapons or fists, they fought with their minds. The moment it made another pass, she struck. She launched herself from her hiding spot, using a nearby vine to swing over the beast's head, landing directly on its back. The creature roared in pain and fury, thrashing violently, but she held on, using every ounce of her strength to stay in place. She didn't need to defeat it entirely. She just needed to make it realize it was not invincible. She drove a sharp, makeshift knife into the vulnerable spot just below its neck where the scales parted. The creature howled, thrashing even more, but it wasn't used to pain. It had never been wounded before, not like this. It wasn't long before the creature realized it was facing something far more dangerous than it had anticipated. Its primal instincts kicked in: fear. For the first time in its life, the apex predator realized it wasn't untouchable. It retreated, stumbling away from her with a new respect. It hadn't been killed, but it had been wounded, and more importantly, it had been made to feel vulnerable. The Deathworld's apex creatures weren't invincible. They had weaknesses, and this one had learned the hard way. The human didn't waste any time. She knew this encounter was far from over. There were many more creatures on this planet, each one more deadly than the last. But she had already proven something critical. She could survive in a place that no one else could. These apex predators had ruled this world with fear for eons, but for the first time, they feared a human. As she moved forward, the encounter with the apex creature wasn't just a victory, it was a lesson. The Deathworld wasn't an unyielding fortress. It wasn't a place that only the strongest could conquer. It was a place that tested everything about its visitors: how they would survive, how they would adapt, and whether they had the intelligence to thrive in such a savage environment. And she had proven, once and for all, that the human spirit, its ingenuity, its resilience, was more than capable of overcoming the most terrifying threats this planet had to offer. This victory was just one more step toward her goal, but it was an important one. She had not only survived the Deathworld's apex creature, but she had also earned its fear. And that was something no other species had managed to do. The days passed, and with each passing hour, the human grew more attuned to the Deathworld. The apex predators, once untouchable and terrifying, now seemed like mere obstacles to overcome, not the insurmountable terrors they had once been painted as. But her journey was far from over. The planet itself was a living nightmare, filled with dangers both seen and unseen. The creatures, while terrifying, were just a part of the challenge. The true test was the environment, a ruthless and unyielding force that could break even the strongest. But the human was different. She was not just a survivor. She had become a force of her own. She moved through the planet with increasing confidence, utilizing the landscape, weather, and natural features of the Deathworld to her advantage. Every inch of the land was a puzzle to be solved, and she was the one solving it. She had already outsmarted the creatures. She had already learned how to live here. Now, it was time to show the planet itself that it could not defeat her. Her greatest challenge came when she found herself in the planet's most hostile territory, the heart of the Deathworld. This area, shrouded in perpetual twilight, was where the most dangerous creatures lived. The ground was a treacherous bog, full of deep chasms, and the air was thick with mist that disoriented even the most seasoned travelers. But the human didn't flinch. She knew she was close to what she had been searching for. Deep in this land lay an ancient, hidden structure, the remnants of an unknown civilization that had once tried to conquer the Deathworld but had failed. It was said to hold knowledge, technology, and perhaps even the key to surviving the planet in ways no one had ever dreamed. She fought through the dense undergrowth, her eyes always searching, always scanning. The Deathworld seemed to have a life of its own, shifting and changing, and every corner of the heart seemed to be teeming with threats. It wasn't just the creatures she had to worry about now. It was the land itself. The plants had become more aggressive, the terrain more unstable. She narrowly avoided a sudden sinkhole that threatened to swallow her whole and faced off with another vicious predator, a massive, venomous snake-like creature that slithered from the shadows. But nothing could stop her. She was relentless, pushing through every obstacle with the quiet resolve that had carried her this far. Finally, she reached the structure, an ancient ruin, half buried in the earth and nearly swallowed by the jungle. It was a remnant of a race long gone, its technology far more advanced than anything the human had ever seen. But it wasn't the technology that mattered. It was the knowledge, the understanding of the Deathworld and how to survive it. As she explored the ruins, she uncovered hidden chambers and ancient texts that detailed ways to navigate and endure the harshest environments the planet could throw at you. For the first time since her arrival, she realized that this was not just about surviving, it was about understanding. The Deathworld wasn't just a place to conquer. It was a place to learn from, to adapt to, and she had learned more than any other explorer who had come before her. The apex creatures, the brutal terrain, the hostile environment, none of it could break her. She had learned how to survive, how to thrive. But there was one final lesson to be learned. The Deathworld had always been a place of fear, of death, of legends told to scare the faint of heart. But now, the human had turned it into something else. She had made it a place of discovery, a place where humanity could conquer even the most unimaginable threats. And as she stood there, in the heart of the Deathworld, she knew that no one else, no other species, no other empire, could have done what she had done. The planet had tested her. It had thrown every challenge it could think of at her. And in the end, the Deathworld had learned that it was no longer the apex predator. The human had become its new apex, a symbol of humanity's ability to not just survive, but to dominate. The creatures of the Deathworld may have once ruled the planet, but now they feared the human. She had not only conquered their world, she had become its ultimate challenge. And for the first time in the Deathworld's history, the apex predators cowered in fear. She entered the Deathworld alone, and she had proven that no force in the galaxy, whether creature, planet, or even legend, could stand against the human will. The Deathworld had been tamed, not by strength or technology, but by the sheer, unyielding spirit of a single human.